We just want to say thank you to all our family and friends for joining us from all over South Africa to celebrate the life of my father, Robert Foster. For those of you who knew my dad in his younger days, you'll know he was a seafaring man, and this is why Ronelle and I saw it fit to give a memorial service to Robert, which he would love, and that we could honor him and his wishes. That's why we're here today at the Sunday's river mouth to celebrate his life. He had a love for the ocean, and it was part of his life for so many years. You will also notice that we have my mother Veronica's ashes here today, who passed away on the 1st of May 2008, along with my dad's, as it was his wishes to be scattered in the ocean along with her. I would like to take this time to dedicate this reading from the Bible to Robert. The first reading is from Psalm 73, verse 23 to 26. Yet I am always with you. You hold me by my right hand. You guide me with your counsel, and afterward you will take me into glory. Whom have I in heaven but you? And earth has nothing I desire besides you. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. Revelation 21, verse 1 to 7 is the second reading. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, Behold, the dwelling of God is with men. He will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself will be with them. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain any more, for the former things have passed away. And he who sat upon the throne said, Behold, I will make all things new. And he also said, Write this, for these words are trustworthy and true. And he said to me, It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give from the fountain of the water of life without payment. He who conquers shall have this heritage, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son. And the last reading is Ecclesiastes 3, verse 1 to 4. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. So to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose. Robert has had his season and he had his purpose. Let us pray. Lord, we want to thank you on this day for the life of my father Robert, a man who was dedicated as a father not only to me, but to Tony and Garth as well. He always thought of us as his three sons. Thank you for the father he was to us, for the husband he was to our mother, for the grandfather he was to Zane, Megan, Janae and Alicia. Thank you for giving him to us for so many years. Thank you for the celebration of life and that you blessed him with such a full life. I pray today that you have mercy on him, forgive him, and I pray that you will accept him with open arms and give him peace and rest. Amen. Now I'm going to ask Ronelle to read us some messages from the family who dedicated these to my father.
I'd like to start off with a message from Peter, Linda, and Henry Key. Many years ago, Robert became part of our family when he married my sister Veronica. So he gained a brother-in-law, an uncle, and a great friend. Robert had a vast general knowledge of the countries of the world and its people. Henry used to phone Robert whenever he required any information about what was spoken in countries around the world. When Gareth was born, there could not have been a prouder father. As Gareth reached school-going age, he developed a love for athletics, which was shared by both Veronica and Robert. Every time Gareth took part, they would be at the stadium supporting him, no matter in which town or city. There were plenty of fun days, especially over weekends, braaiing, having beers, and Robert's favorite, a good bottle of red wine. After my sister died, it became a set thing to phone Robert at 5 o'clock on Monday afternoons. We had a great time chatting and became very close. I'll miss doing that. The ashes of Veronica and Robert will be scattered in the sea, and together they will travel wherever the waves take them. Farewell, Robert. It was such a privilege to have had you as a brother-in-law and dear friend. Then a message from Sharon. Robert, you will always have a special place in my heart. You are one of a kind, unique, true to yourself and your beliefs. This is how I will always remember you. We clicked and understood each other. You could be stubborn sometimes. You refused to believe Linda that there is boomslange here in Blouberg. LOL. She gave up trying to convince you, even though she had a picture from me to prove it. We have many stories to tell. Some are very funny. I will never forget them. You had many experiences in this life and were blessed to share interesting facts and knowledge with us. May your soul fly high with my beloved Tony and shine down upon us until we meet again. And lastly, a message from Zane, Robert and Veronica's grandson. Opie Robert was a fountain of knowledge and always had an interesting fact to share. I'd like to share a funny story about Opie Robert. We were at the Spur one day and he requested Canadian maple syrup with his waffle. He was insistent that it only be Canadian maple syrup and not normal syrup. Gareth gave the waiter a wink so that he knew to just bring the normal syrup. When Opie's waffle arrived, he couldn't stop talking about how delicious the Canadian maple syrup was and how authentic it tasted. Opie, if you're listening, I'm sorry to tell you it was good old normal golden syrup. One other occasion I'd like to share is when I was little, he wanted to take me on a small plane, and I was so excited until we got there and he told me he is going to fly the plane. Opie Robert, I know you're up there having a bottle or two of red wine with my dad. We will miss you and your phone calls on every single birthday and special occasion. Love, Zane. Then, as we were going through Robert's things, we came across this poem that Veronica wrote to her mom, Omi Boshoff, on her passing. When sorrows come, we sometimes feel as though our hearts will break, and through the long and lonely nights, we often lie awake. The friends who brought us so much joy through bright, untroubled days bring little comfort, though they try in many special ways. The hours pass so slowly that a week seems like a year, and we feed on thoughts and memories so precious and so dear. How foolish, but how human too, to think our loss must be the end of every joy in life, if only we could see that someone watches over us and understands our pain, someone whose mere presence means we do not weep in vain. His strength, his care, his guidance are a deep and endless well. His heart is always open to the things we need to tell. And with his help, we find the will to make a fresh new start. For who but God, in his great love, can heal a troubled heart? Thank you.
So how do you sum up someone with 82 years experience in just a few minutes? It's almost an impossible task, but I thought to break it up into three parts of his life. My dad, Robert, was born in Durban on the 2nd of March, 1939. He grew up in a part of Durban just north of the city centre called Mount Edgecombe. He really enjoyed his school years, where he proved to be quite a formidable athlete, becoming the 400-metre Natal champion in his age group and also setting the Natal long jump record. I guess that's where I get my genes as an athlete. He always told us the story of him leaving school early. Whether we believed him or not, we'll never know. But he joined the British Merchant Navy as a very young man. He also joined the crew of the boat, the SS Northern Star, which was built in 1961, and set off on what was part of his life that made him the man he became. Everyone knows how much knowledge he gained while traveling the world for many years. He circumvented the world 32 times. We have all heard the stories from Honolulu to Panama, Mexico, Brazil, and so many countries and islands I can't even pronounce. One thing I only recently discovered is that he sent a written postcard to his parents back in Durban every Christmas and every special occasion, and loved sharing his travels with them too. This was a time that my dad spoke of fondly, with fond memories, and to anyone who would lend an ear, and we've all heard these stories. On his return to South Africa, he really followed his passion. He trained and got his pilot's license, which was another proud moment in his life. So I think Zane would have been all right in his hands. Oh, and don't get me started on how he hated Cessna aircraft. I think he was just biased and always told us that he trained in a Piper. He was very chuffed and loved flying. And again, I guess this is where I got my love for the skies, minus the pilot's license. A few years later, in his middle to late 30s, he landed up in this little town called Bloemfontein. I'm not sure he'd ever been there before, as my dad was a very pure Englishman and his Afrikaans was very bad and very delicious. So Bloem was a bit of a culture shock, I'm sure. Nevertheless, this would be where he eventually put down roots. He could have chosen from so many different places in the world, but he chose Bloem, and he loved it. He met my mother Veronica, and also started out in the furniture removals industry at Studiford Van Lines in Bloemfontein, a career which he dedicated so many years to. He really made his mark in the removals industry as a great businessman, and he was always laser focused on having a profitable branch and being a good person. He was well respected among his peers, and I've heard all the stories from Mr. Foster or about Mr. Foster from the staff when I joined the company many years later. When he was in the prime of his career, he had his first major health scare shortly after his 55th birthday. It was then that we found out he had major heart disease. He was then sent into surgery and he had bypasses of the neck arteries as well as a quadruple bypass of the heart. But it was during the third operation, which was the bypass of the arteries in his legs, where he had a major setback. Many of you will remember he contracted a germ in the hospital, and they later had to induce him into a coma which lasted for 3 months. There were so many patients who also ended up in hospital with the same germ, but they never made it out. And somehow the Lord spared my dad's life. The doctors tried to scare him and told him that if he carried on smoking, he wouldn't last 10 years. Boy, did they prove him wrong. He unfortunately wasn't able to return to work once he recovered, as he was resuscitated twice during his coma and the lack of oxygen altered his cognitive ability. So he was forced into an early retirement at age 57. And I'm sure that was a hard thing for him because he really loved what he did as a job. But then he discovered many other hobbies in life. His love for gardening intensified. He found a love for handguns and rifles, and still to this day we don't know why. And he loved his reading, which intensified quite a bit. Later years, my mom and dad ended up moving to Cape Town after their choch, as they called me. During this time, my mother fell ill with emphysema and passed away in 2008. This was quite unexpected for us all, but especially for my dad. Many of you will know he could be a stubborn old man, and he would never admit how much this actually affected him, more than he made us believe. My dad ended up having another health scare, and after a major fall in Cape Town, we decided he would do better in an environment where you could have people around him of his own age. So we had him move to Jeffreys Bay so he could be closer to Ronel and I. He soon found himself right at home at Eden Glen in Jeffreys Bay and made a number of friends. He even met a man that sat at his lunch table, and forgive me but I forgot his name, who actually helped build the SS Northern Star back in the late 1950s. He then also met somebody called Dennis, who became his best friend, who was quite a few years older than him, but the two of them grew really close. Dennis unfortunately passed away at the ripe old age of 99 earlier in February of 2020. Again, I think this hit my father much harder than he knew and made us believe. Then to think that in the last year and a bit of his life, it would be filled with COVID and a period of isolation. Then one of the big losses One of the biggest losses was the passing of Tony, one of my brothers, to COVID in late February of this year. Tony was like a son to my dad, even though he was not Tony's biological father. They grew very close over the years, and he was a mentor to Tony in building his career as well. My father's last days weren't great, as he was in pain and the circulation to his lower legs was non-existent. This led to a major infection in his left leg, and surgery was necessary to try and save the leg. But this proved too much for his frail body to handle. Dad, rest in peace. Enjoy your time with Ma, with Tony, Omi and Gran. I know you and your favorite cousin Malcolm must be having a ball together. To the man who was my role model, my father, my coach and my friend, thank you for showing me the ropes and for teaching me so much. I can only be the man I am because of the way you and Ma raised me. So until we meet again, I will always love you. I'll now ask Ronel to read a poem that she has to dedicate to my father.
He is Gone, a poem by David Harkins. You can shed tears that he is gone, or you can smile because he lived. You can close your eyes and pray that he will come back, or you can open your eyes and see all that he has left. Your heart can be empty because you can't see him, or you can be full of the love that you shared. You can turn your back on tomorrow and live yesterday, or you can be happy for tomorrow because of yesterday. You can remember him and only that he is gone. or you can cherish his memory and let it live on.
I just want to do a few thank yous. Thanking some of the people for everything they have done for my father and for us as a family. Firstly, thank you so much to each and every one who sent us messages on WhatsApp, Facebook, and also all the phone calls. Your support, thoughts, and prayers have made this time much easier. I have to say a special thank you to Staff Sister Juanita Lauter and the ladies who looked after my dad at Eden Glen for the past few years. Some of the happiest years of his life. A special thank you to Dr. Buerta, who was my dad's vascular surgeon, and Dr. Roos, his physician, who oversaw his care at St. George's Hospital during the last weeks and also reassured us along the way that he was in good hands. Then a big thank you to the sisters in the ICU ward at St. George's Hospital, who made my dad as comfortable as they could during his last days. A thank you to Andiswa from Dove's Himansdorp for all your assistance and arranging my dad's cremation. Then we want to say thank you to the Sundays River Adventures for being able to do this memorial service on the river, and to Adam, our skipper, who's at the back over there. Thank you for bringing us here safely. Then also a thank you to Johan Mainkies and to Andre from Solideo Gloria Productions, who are behind the cameras recording this memorial service and making it all possible to share with you on this special day. Lastly, a big loving thank you to my wife. Thank you for all your support and help in the last week and a bit. It hasn't been easy, but you have lifted me up when I needed it and helped with so many of the arrangements. Thank you. What we're now going to do is we're going to scatter the ashes of my dad and my mom. My dad will have his favorite song playing, which is Amazing Grace, on the bagpipes. And I'm sure he sent all the air support that's around us at the moment. And then we're also going to scatter my mom's ashes, as I've mentioned, and then the song playing will be I Did It My Way by Elvis, which I'm sure was her second love. And then Renelle will put a wreath in the water, and Lara's theme song from Dr. Zhivago will play, which was their favorite song that they shared together on special occasions and more. And then finally, as you all know, my dad was a big lover of beer, so we'll cheers to him and we'll have a beer. He wouldn't have had it any other way.
Now, end is near, so I face the final curtain. My friend, I'll say it clear, I'll state my case. which I'm certain. I've lived a life that's full. I traveled each and every byway, oh, and more, much more than this. I did it my way. Regrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. I did what I had to do and saw it through without exemption. I planned each charted course, each careful step along the byway, oh, and more, much more than this. I did it my